Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We'll call the meeting to order. Welcome to the regular council meeting of Tuesday, December 15th, our last regular council meeting before the holidays. I'll just ask if you'll stand and observe O Canada with us, please. Thank you. Item 2.2, please join me for a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Item 2.3, adoption of the open session agenda. Councillor Elmsley, I believe you have that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Dunn, that the agenda for the open session of the regular council meeting of Tuesday, December 15th, 2020 be adopted as circulated and with the following amendments. Additions, item 8.2, deputation by Adam Martin regarding the Martin Municipal Drain Petition, item 13.1.2 on the agenda. Item 9.4, correspondence from Melanie Denham regarding a bylaw to provide the changing of names of public highway in the City of Kawartha Lakes to Falaise Court and City View Heights, item 15.1.3 on the agenda.
Thank you. Call the question. All in favor? That's passed. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in anything on today's agenda? Seeing none. Notices and information by members of council and staff. Councillor Richardson, go ahead.
Thank you, and through you, I'd just like to give a shout out today to all the fire departments, Pontypool, Bethany, and Janettville for their food drives and toy drives that they just performed the last weekend. Very successful. It was very nice to see so much community support, obviously following the COVID rules. Those Christmas pickups will be tomorrow in Bethany from 10 to noon and in Janettville from 10 till noon as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dunn.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's been 9 months since this COVID thing has started, and our staff has had to work under some very trying conditions. For the most part, they've done a really good job, and I want to congratulate them and thank them. I want to particularly center out the outdoor people. When this thing started, they didn't have the options of working safely from home. We didn't know what we were facing, but the potholes got fixed, the sidewalks got repaired, the ditches got dug, the parks got cleaned out. They did enhancements in the parks. We built that wonderful park down here on Logie Street. These folks really put it forward. They had a reduced staff, and they got the job done, and we don't recognize our outdoor gangs often enough. So I want to say a particular thanks to them, and Merry Christmas to everybody.
Thank you for that. Councillor Yeo?
Thank you, and through you, I just want to do a shout out to the Chamber of Commerce in Coboconk. This past weekend, they put together a reverse Santa Claus parade, and it was just an outstanding success. I saw a councillor, or deputy mayor there, sorry, and it was wonderful. We had over 500 cars last count coming through to look at the floats. Rather than the floats moving, they were moving, and thanks to the volunteers, the sponsors, and the people who donated goodies for the goodie bags for all the kids. It was just a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ashmore?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a few announcements. The Omimi New Year's Eve fireworks will be held at the beach park at 8 p.m. and please watch from your homes or driveways and help us celebrate the end of 2020 in style. Please support our sponsors. And that'll be on New Year's Eve. The main sponsor is Supernova Fireworks. A big thank you to them, and especially Matthew Hutchison of that organization for doing this event, which will be great. I'd like to thank the Patel family in Dunsford for their $1,000 contribution of unwrapped toys to the Kinsman Toy Drive. It was an amazing contribution that they made, and the public came and donated as well as the family, so a shout out to them. And also to the people in Omimi who did a tree lighting at the Coronation Hall. I'd like to thank them. They did a great job. And I'd just like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and health and happiness for 2021. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we'll all be celebrating the end of 2020. Councillor O'Reilly, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The International Plowing Match and the Lindsay Exhibition present Merry and Bright Festival on December 18th to the 31st. It'll be open from 6 o'clock till 9 p.m. Each evening, and donations are $20 per minimum per car. It's going to be closed over the Christmas time for December 24th, 25th, and 26th. There will be fireworks finale on December 31st, New Year's Eve, and the monies will be shared with the Lindsay X and also with a number of nonprofit organizations. And also just the redevelopment is in our package. Redevelopment of a place called Home is going to start in the new year, and like everyone, I wish everyone season's greetings.
Thank you. Councillor Seymour Fagan.
Thank you, through you. I would just like to give a thank you to the communities in my area who've been working hard during the Christmas season to make things a little bit normal. Kinmount had a great craft making and Christmas display. Bob Cajun had Mingle and Jingle, and they had a Christmas drive-through parade. So thanks to the Canats, the Lions, Impact 32, the Chamber. So thank you all for trying to keep this a little bit normal for everyone.
Thank you. Anyone else? We certainly do. Keeps reminding us what an amazing community we have and what amazing people that go out of their way to make it special. So great appreciation by all of us. Thank you. Any announcements from staff? Seeing none, we will move into that time of year again. Our item 5 is our deputy mayor report. Before we do the 2021 deputy mayor election, I'll turn it over to our deputy mayor for 2020, Deputy Mayor O'Reilly, and see if he wants to say a few words before wrapping up the session. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, thanks very much, Mr. Mayor, and I'd like to thank the members of council for electing me for deputy mayor for the past year and affording me the opportunity to serve the residents of the city of Kawartha Lakes. It certainly was started out as looked like it was going to be a normal year, but in hindsight, after COVID set in March, it certainly things became very different, and especially for people like, in particular in Bob Cajun, I think where Pinecrest Nursing Home was certainly hit so hard and lost so many people there, and just want to thank Councillor Seymour Fagan and your committee for the money you raised along with the Community Foundation for all the nonprofits and the individuals that you helped over the rest of the year. The other thing we were hoping to do, I think, as the deputy mayor, I was hoping to go out and follow in the footsteps of Councillor Elmsley and have our town hall meetings. And our project this year was going to be for economic development, and so that didn't happen as a result of COVID-19 because just that we were going to have to do town hall meetings, and just didn't seem like the right thing to have gatherings and people, so that kind of got shelved with a lot of our other normal activities. You know, the fall fairs and the Canada Day, and they all got pretty well canceled. Well, they were canceled, and then I think the International Plowing Match was another big event which attracts between 70 and 80,000 people. Hopefully they also got canceled. So anyways, so a lot of the normal things that usually did happen. There were some great things come out of it. The Economic Task Recovery Force and the Pandemic Recovery Task Force did come out of it as a result of it. So and a lot of those recommendations were certainly, well, we supported them last week, especially the big things with the downtown reconstruction in Bobcaygeon, in Fenelon Falls, and also in Lindsay, and also for the number of the money into the trails, also money going into boat launches, and then the Community Pandemic Recovery Fund. We're hoping to get the money out for the Lindsay Legacy Chest Fund, plus the other money we have in our budget coming forward with recommendations in the future here, and also we increased our money from 80,000 to 160 so that a lot of the local people don't have to raise their share of the money. So I think there were a lot of good things done, and we also had a transit announcement from Minister McKenna as well as Laurie Scott, and also your work on the EORN as well was also from broadband with the federal and provincial government coming together. So anyways, I think we had many great achievements, and look forward to many great achievements next year as well.
Thank you for that, Deputy Mayor O'Reilly. I would like to thank you for your work. It was a tough year, but as you mentioned, we seem to get a lot accomplished, kept our municipality moving forward. So always appreciated your knowledge and your forthcoming and offering a second opinion when I asked for it, sometimes when I didn't. Thank you for that. So I will turn it over to item 6. I will turn it over to the presiding officer, Kathy Ritchie, our city clerk, to look after the 2021 deputy mayor election.
Thank you, Mayor. Along with everything else that has changed in 2020, our election for deputy mayor will also be conducted a little bit differently, just to follow safety protocols. So I will remain in my seat. You've all been supplied a black pen, and I will actually deliver your ballots to you and retrieve them rather than our regular procession. So for the annual election for the 21 term, I would like to have the first call for nominations for deputy mayor. Councillor Elmslie.
Thank you. I will nominate Pat O'Reilly as deputy mayor. He didn't really get a fair chance in 2020, and I think he needs another year to get the job right.
And is there a seconder for that nomination, please? Councillor Seymour Fagan. Would you like to speak on your nomination?
Do you want me to say a few words?
Yes, I was just going to have Councillor Seymour Fagan speak on her
Oh, I'm
nomination.
sorry. Oh, I'm not me.
Well, I know you like to talk. I just want to thank Councillor Elmslie for nominating Councillor O'Reilly. And I agree, you were not able to do your full position that you could have, and the asset you are to the municipality. So yes, that's why I'd like to second that one.
So Deputy Mayor, would you like to accept the nomination?
Yes, I will accept it.
And would you like to speak on your nomination?
Yes, I'll just be brief. I said, as Mayor Latham has said, I think that, you know, there's a lot of good things and a lot of positive energy going forward in light of the COVID situation in our community. Building and planning had quite a boom number of applications. We just had some the other day for an apartment building in downtown Lindsay for 200 units, as well as there's a lot of new homes being built in Bobcaygeon, Rokeby subdivision, Fenelon Falls along the water as well. Woodville's got a new project going out there, and I know Ron's been working hard in Omimi with getting a new bridge, and he's also trying to bring some other businesses there as well. And I believe Betty Lowe's is certainly looking forward to trying to get her started as well. And with our capital projects, we have a number of them going as well too. The big one with the $22 million one with water and wastewater is a big investment and certainly something that's needed in our area. And I look forward to, you got a new fire hall out between Little Britain and Oakwood, and I also believe that where they're going to try, the fairs are going to come back as the best they can, and the international plowing match, they've rented a booth downtown in the Nesbitt Mall, so they're anticipating about having the plowing match back, and whether it's going to be full, so as other years or not, but anyway, so I think there's lots of good news story, and I'd be happy to be part of it if that's the wishes of council. Thank you.
I will now give a second call for nominations for Deputy Mayor. Yes, Councillor Yeo?
Nominate Councillor Ashmore.
And would you like to speak on your nomination?
Yeah, briefly, Councillor Ashmore put forward a desire for the position, and in light of the democracy we live in, I think an election is due. Thank you.
Okay. And is there a seconder for that nomination? Councillor Dunn? And would you like to speak on your nomination?
Yeah, just very briefly. We have the plowing match coming up this year. My concern last year and once again this year is that we need somebody with with strong agricultural bona fides, and Councillor Ashmore brings that to the table. He's got a long history from probably the day he was born in the agricultural community. I think he would do a good job representing us at that level. Ags is our single largest employer in the city of Kawartha Lakes, and I think it's fitting that we recognize that by electing somebody with an agricultural background.
And Councillor Ashmore, would you like to speak on the nomination, and do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I'll accept that nomination. Thank you.
And would you like to speak on your nomination?
Normally we get up and have a podium here, but I won't. I'll try and sit over here so everybody can see me. So I'd like to thank my nominator and my seconder. I appreciate that. I'd like to thank the people in Ward 6 for electing me here to sit at this table every time I walk into this building. I'm certainly honored to walk in here to represent the people that put me here, and I certainly appreciate that every day. This last year, I would say that resilience is the word that our citizens have demonstrated. Just an incredible resilience to this crisis, probably the worst crisis that we've faced in this country since World War II. And we're in a recovery mode, albeit it's slow. It's very slow and very painful. People are very impatient, but I understand that it's going to take a while. But we are in recovery mode, and that's where I'm focusing on. I know the people are. They want to get through this crisis, and we've had a lot of stress over the years. But I think next year we really want to be in a positive mood, and I know we're moving that way. I have 3 things that I would like to accomplish if I was elected to this position. Number 1 would be to improve customer service. Now, I've talked about this before, but I think being a member of council, there's more to being a member of council than just logging case files and putting memos towards council and getting them passed. People ask for reasons and not excuses, and I think I have a different approach that a little different than anybody else, but I always go the extra mile for a constituent who has an issue that they can't get remedied, or they want something done. And I feel that I can do this on a citywide basis, not just on the ward that I represent. So I would really like to foster some sort of a program where we can really just take it to the next level, customer service, because I think we've made great improvements, but we're just not quite there, in my opinion. Number 2 is to restore public confidence and trust back to the people. This is really important. When you talk about communities, a community could be 5 or 6 houses in a subdivision out in the country, or a community could be a town or a village. So it's how you define a community. Any size of community, they look after each other. So we can't ignore small communities in your ward or anywhere in the city of Kawartha Lakes. And I feel I represent anybody in any income bracket, whether you're a struggling single mom in Omemee or you own a multi-million-dollar house on the waterfront. I treat you the same, and you're both equal to me, and I work just as hard for each one of you. And one of the things in Ward 6, I've seen amazing stories about immigrants. My wife is an immigrant to Canada, and I have some sort of an understanding of what immigrants go through, and it's amazing. I just mentioned one family that came to Dunsford, and second generation now, and what they've done great work. So we need to embrace our people from other countries coming in. The third thing I'd like to do is find some more innovative ways to improve our financing. We keep talking about debt ceilings, and I'm getting and the people are getting kind of impatient, because we need to look at different ways of financing, especially our capital projects. I know a report will be coming next year, but I really think we have to take that to the next level and look at more innovative ways to finance our projects in this city. I'd like to thank Councillor O'Reilly, Deputy Mayor O'Reilly, for what he's done in the last year, and I would certainly have him be the ambassador for the city, or even for the month of October, the Deputy Mayor. No problem with that, and because I'm hoping that the international plowing match will be here. We've done a lot of work to get it here, and I'm hoping that will come. So everybody's hoping for that. It's a great international event that we've lucked out in getting it. And this position pays the member of council who gets this position an extra per diem. Personally, I would not accept that per diem. I would donate that to 3 different organizations: the Dunsford Food Bank, the Omemee Food Bank, and the Humane Society of Kawartha Lakes. I would certainly put it in writing that I would donate to those 3 worthy causes, a way of giving back, so it is, and that's why I wanted to do it that way. And finally, I think I'd like to thank 7 people in my life who are really important to me. My late parents, and I always can talk to them whenever I want to, and in my own special way, which is great. My wife, next year, will be married 30 years, and she's been a citizen of Canada for 30 years now. And my 4 sons, we've got incredible 4 sons. And today marks 25 years since my mother passed away, and I'll dedicate today for her. So again, thanks for my nominator and my seconder. I'd appreciate your support, and I won't let you down. I'll work hard like I do as a member of council and do an even better job as deputy mayor for 2021.
Thank you. I will now have a final call for nominations for deputy mayor. Final call. I'll ask for a motion to close nominations for deputy mayor. Councillor Elmsley, seconded by Councillor Richardson, that the nominations for the election of deputy mayor be closed. All in favor? Okay. We'll now appoint a scrutineer for the election of the deputy mayor. That this Jennifer Stover be appointed scrutineer. I'll need a mover. And a seconder. Councillor Seymour Fagan. All in favor? Carried. And now we'll recess for a few minutes in order to conduct the election. After the vote has been taken, there was 8 ballots issued, 8 ballots returned. The successful candidate for the 2021 Deputy Mayor is Pat O'Reilly. Hold on. All right, I've lost my glasses, so I'm going to have to wing it. Thank you. You're my eyes and ears. We have a motion to destroy the ballots for the 2021 Deputy Mayor election. Councillor Dunn and Councillor Elmsley. I can't see.
I just want to congratulate Deputy Mayor O'Reilly and thank Councillor Ashmore for putting your name forward. Yeah, so I'll turn it over to you, Deputy Mayor, and if you want to say a few words.
I'll just be brief. I think I've already spoken to them already a lot. I want to thank my nominator, Councillor Anderson and Councillor Seymour Fagan for seconding it. Councillor Ashmore for running an election. It's always good to have people interested in the jobs and whatever. And I look forward to working. As I mentioned, it's going to be a very busy year. We got a lot of building and a lot of going on in our community. I think we got a lot of progress, and I think it's going to be really important to keep the momentum. And our capital budget looks good and operating coming forward. So. Look, I will continue to work hard and help anyone in any way I can, and look forward to this year. It's difficult as it might be. I don't think there's going to be too many things, especially if we decide to do some round tables that'll likely be in the last half of the year. If they do happen, it certainly may not be in the early months anyways, for sure. So anyways, thank you everyone for your support.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item 7, which is council minutes. Can I get a motion to receive and adopt the special council meeting minutes of November 12th, the regular council meeting minutes of November 17th, and the special council meeting minutes of December 1st, please? Councillor Yeo, seconded by Councillor Seymour Fagan. Any questions, comments? All in favor? That's passed. We'll move right into item 8, which is deputations. Our first deputation is regarding the Martin Municipal Drain petition. From Diane Dilling. It's regarding item 13.1.2 on the agenda. So we'll get Diane on board.
Diane, if you can enter *6, and then that will unmute you and let you speak. Thank you.
Okay, Diane, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, we can hear you. Go ahead, and just a friendly reminder, you have 5 minutes, Diane. Go ahead, we can hear you fine.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and councillors. My name is Diane Dilling. Myself and Paul Reed own 98.75 acres at 1915 Pigeon Lake Road, Concession 12, Park Lot 20. We have resided at this location since November 1st, 1997. We are the adjacent farm to our new neighbors, the Martins, at 1899 Pigeon Lake Road as of April 2020. The Martin Municipal Drain is being petitioned to run approximately 500 meters in length through our farm. I'm speaking today to oppose the Martin Drain petition. On October 2nd, 2020, while discussing the drainage problem with Mr. Adam Martin, he brought to my attention that the roadside ditch was flooding into his front field. He mentioned that he thought more than 50% of the water going through our farm comes in from his roadside ditch as well. I reminded Mr. Martin that we wanted him to run his tile draining to the road, like I had previously discussed September 10th, 2019 with Peter Martin, his brother, and their tile drain contractor, prior to the purchase of the farm. I also suggested installing a culvert under his entrance to run the water down the roadside ditch to alleviate the water flooding into his front field. He agreed the culvert installation would solve the roadside ditch drainage problem. He then called Lucas Feitler, drainage superintendent, regarding the culvert and then called us right back. On October 26th, 2020, I noticed an excavator at Mr. Martin's and was worried that he was going to dig out the small water course ditch at the property line. I called Mr. Martin saying that I don't want a mutual agreement drain. He informed me that he had called Mr. Scott Hodgkins of the roads department with no success to get the roadside ditching done, and that he wished that I would call Mr. Hodgkins. On October 27th, 2020, I noticed Mr. Martin was digging out the small water course ditch with an excavator where he wants to outlet his tile drainage at the property line. I took pictures and asked if he had a permit and said that you are not allowed to run more water into our farm. You're scaring me. I called Mr. Feitler, very upset that Mr. Martin had dug the small ditch deeper and wider, and said, I don't want a mutual agreement drain. I also noticed Mr. Martin digging several trenches with the excavator in his front field, directing more water to our farm. October 29th, 2020, I noticed the city truck at Mr. Martin's. I saw straw bales in the bottom of the small water course at the property line. Mr. Martin said if he doesn't install a culvert under his entrance, the city will help him pay for a municipal drain. I am shocked by this statement. After walking Pigeon Lake Road east of Settlement Road, we noticed every entrance has a culvert except Mr. Martin's. A practical alternative solution to an expensive municipal drain and ongoing maintenance costs to the community would be to install a culvert under Mr. Martin's driveway and to complete ditching to create positive flow to Mr. Feitler's specifications as shown in the diagram he provided. Install a berm to keep the water in the ditch recommended to Mr. Martin by Mr. Scott Hodgkins, and to install a pump if necessary. I have a quote for the culvert installation, ditching, and berm from a construction company for $7,514.50. While watching the Drainage Board meeting November 24th, 2020, it was proposed over and over to cost the ditching and culverts, and was agreed to do so. This is what we think carries the motion forward. It was also said that the councillors could say yay or nay about proceeding with this petition at the next council meeting. We are also very concerned about the ecological impact on the small, seasonal water course going through our farm. The installation of a municipal drain will create more water flow exiting into the road ditch at a 90-degree angle at the bottom of our farm, which could possibly undermine the road base and cause flooding at a dangerous corner. In conclusion, Mr. Martin was advised of this drainage issue prior to the purchase of their farm. We feel he should take the brunt of the cost as well as the construction alterations to resolve his drainage issue. We feel the roadside ditch option is less expensive versus a costlier municipal drain that will burden the community financially and environmentally, not only with the initial construction costs, but also with the ongoing maintenance costs. Most communities are struggling during these times, and these extra costs would be unwelcome. Thank you, Diane Dillon.
Thank you, Diane. Appreciate that. I just want to acknowledge that we received your correspondence as well. So I'm going to get a motion to receive the deputation and the correspondence, and then we'll see if there's any questions for you. Moved by Councillor Ashmore, seconded by Councillor Seymour Fagan. Any questions for the deputant? Seeing none, we have a motion to receive. All in favor? That's passed. Thank you, Diane. We appreciate hearing from you. Okay, we'll move down to item 2, which is the a deputation from Adam Martin regarding the Martin Municipal Drain petition. Is again item 13.1.2 on the agenda. I believe Mr. Martin is tuning in by phone. Can you hear me, sir?
Mr. Martin?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, Mr. Martin, we can hear you just fine. Just a reminder, you have 5 minutes, sir, and we do have your correspondence as well. Please go ahead.
Yes, it's Adam Martin. Hello to council from Adam Martin at 1899 Pigeon Lake Road. I am the farmer requesting the municipal drain. I bought this farm in April with intentions of tile draining it this fall. so we can grow crops. All of the fields are extremely wet. The field by the road has water standing a lot of the year because the Pigeon Lake Road ditch drains onto my farm. Then the water runs on the surface into a pond behind our house. There it goes out of the pond on the other side into a ditch that goes east over Paul and Diane's farm. Here is what we had hoped to do. We wanted to hire a drainage contractor to dig the existing ditch deeper from the pond on my land over across Paul and Diane's farm until we had enough fall for a sufficient drain. That would have been starting at 4 feet deeper on my land and continuing over across Paul and Diane's farm for a total of about 400 to 600 feet. We told them we would pay for all of that cost. They didn't want to let us do anything to the ditch, so we asked if we could bury a pipe across their farm. The answer was no. Next, we got Lucas Feitler, drainage inspector for City of Kawartha Lakes, involved. He suggested a mutual agreement drain for that ditch. Lucas supplied us and Paul and Diane with info about the mutual agreement drain. Paul and Diane thought about it for a while and said no. They wanted us to drain all our fields into the roadside ditch and put a culvert under our driveway so the water would flow east along the road instead of going across their land. So we jacked into that. Public Works told me the ditch is working as it was designed to work, and no, they wouldn't do anything about it. But they would let me if I paid for everything. After jacking in some more, we found out it wouldn't work because it would need extreme depth, approximately 11 feet deep at the end of my driveway, and culverts would have to be replaced by Paul and Diane's 2 laneways. It would need 24-inch culverts. The ditch would have to be cleaned all the way to the bottom of the hill, and the cost would be totally unfeasible. This is why I applied for a municipal drain, so that hopefully we can grow crops and make some profit instead of losing more money than we get. And yes, it was true what Diane said. I did dig a few small ditches to channel the water going through my fields, but the water was already going into the ditch. It was just spreading out further, so I channeled it a bit. You can ask Lucas Feitler for more details if needed. He was with me through all of this. Thanks, Adam Martin.
Thanks, Adam. Appreciate it. Again, I'll get a motion to receive the deputation and the correspondence, and we'll see if there's any questions for Mr. Martin. Motion to receive, Councillor Vale and Dunn. Any questions for Mr. Martin? Seeing none, all in favor? That's passed. Thank you, Mr. Martin. This item will come up a little bit later on our agenda.
All right.
Okay, item 9 is correspondence. We have correspondence regarding the creation of an annual winter festival in the City of Kawartha Lakes. Just so council knows, I have spoken with Mr. Robinson. This is the gentleman who does the snowshoe event, one of the gentlemen who does the snowshoe event up in Fenland Falls, and he just wanted to see if we could create sort of a citywide winter festival. Obviously going to be tough to do this year, so after speaking with Economic Development, I suggest a motion that we receive the correspondence and refer back to staff for some joint communication and promotion for this year, and that staff bring forward recommendations in Q2 of next year with possible ideas for coordinating winter festivities over a certain period of time. So if I can get a mover in a second, or I'm happy to speak to it. Councillor Seymour Fagan and Elmsley. You know, this is going to be tough this year with events with what's going on with the pandemic, but there are different communities that do some events, so we're going to work on the communication and help promote it from a city perspective instead of individually. And then staff have a few ideas on some events, maybe a small grant program we can bring forward for some winter community events for next year to tie them in, and then the city would help do some overall marketing. We as a city don't do events, but we could help coordinate some of these events through some of the different communities that we have. So economic development and community services, we're good with that motion, and they'll bring forward some ideas and we can go from there. So anybody want to speak to it, comments? All in favor? That's passed. Thank you. Item 9.2 is correspondence regarding the Martin Municipal Drain petition from Scott and Cindy Haney regarding item 13.1.2 on the agenda. Motion to receive the correspondence, please. Councillor Elmsley and Ashmore. Question? Yep, go ahead.
Just on the topic of correspondence, the first deputant had a second page, and I didn't see it displayed on the website. Just wanted to know that I don't see it on this particular merged agenda. So there were 2 pages, just for the record.
Yeah, we now have it. It's been fixed. I have it in my paper copy, but it's now up on the website, so thank you. So this is the correspondence for 9.2. All in favor? That's passed. 9.3 is a correspondence regarding the Martin Municipal Drain petition from George and Shirley Salter. Again, item 13.1.2 on the agenda. Motion to receive the correspondence, please. Councillor Richardson and O'Reilly. Questions? All in favor? That's passed. 9.4 is correspondence regarding a bylaw to provide for the changing of names of a public highway in the city of Kawartha Lakes to Falaise Court and City View Heights. This is regarding a bylaw, item 15.1.3 on the agenda from Melanie Denham. Just a motion to receive the correspondence, please. Councillor Richardson, Councillor Dunn, second. Any questions, comments? All in favor? That's passed. We'll move into petitions. Item 10, we have a petition regarding the condition of Hickory Beach Road from CKL Road 30 to Sandy Point Road, and CKL Road 30 from Hickory Beach Road to CKL Road 25. We have a portion of the petition in our agenda, and the complete copy of the petition is available through the clerk's office. It's from Greg Mills, the president of the Hickory Beach Association. Suggest we receive the petition and refer it to our 5-year roads plan. Councillor Elmsley, you'll move that. Second by Councillor O'Reilly. Questions, comments? All in favor? That's passed. We don't have any presentations. We'll go into the Planning Advisory Committee. I don't have any extractions ahead of time. Is there any extractions from planning anybody wants to bring up now? Can I get a motion then that the minutes of the December 2nd, 2020 Planning Advisory Committee meeting be received and the recommendations included in section 12.3 of the agenda be adopted? Councillor O'Reilly, Deputy Mayor O'Reilly, sorry, and Councillor Vail, any comments, questions? All in favor? That's passed. We'll move over to consent items. On the consent agenda, I have, do you have that, Councillor Vail? Did you give it back to him? Okay, so I have extractions. I have 13.1.2. The Martin petition has been extracted by Councillor Ashmore. I have 13.1.6, charitable road tolls, has been extracted by Councillor Elmsley. I have Kawartha Lake Skills Advance Ontario Program Agreements with VCCS and Sir Sanford Fleming College. I have extracted. I have 13.1.16, the establishment of a bylaw to regulate road occupancy and closure, extracted by Councillor Elmsley. 13.1.17, the backwater valve subsidy program has been extracted by Councillor Elmsley. And 13.2.1, a memo regarding council appointments to the Drainage Board has been extracted by Councillor Ashmore. Are there any other extractions in the consent agenda? Councillor Vail?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Richardson, that all the proposed resolutions shown in section 13.1 and 13.2 of the agenda be approved and adopted by council in the order that they appear on the agenda and sequentially numbered, save and except for items 13.1.2, 13.1.6, 13.1.14, 13.1.16, 13.1.17, 13.2.1.
Thank you. Call the question. All in favor? That's passed. First extraction is 13.1.2, the recommendations from the Drainage Board regarding the Martin petition. Councillor Ashmore, your extraction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple things, questions here, or comments, and then I'll ask through you to Director Rojas. I understand from both sides what they're saying here. Like, I fully understand tile drainage. My father and I, we did hundreds of acres. I know the value of tile drainage. It's necessary, and it has to be done, especially in those types of field conditions that they own, and just basically everywhere in City Kawartha Lakes, to get proper yield and better soil drainage, obviously. So I understand it, and I get it. The predicament I'm in here is that I don't have enough information here that I would have liked to have had by now. Like, during the Drainage Board meeting, I had asked if we could get some sort of a cost estimate, what it would cost to ditch the Pigeon Lake Road as an alternative instead of going through as a municipal drain. If you see in some of those photos, there are two photos there. I know exactly where they are. One's at the corner of Kennedy Bay and 36, and the other one is at the corner of Snug Harbor Road and 36. And they're examples of outlets that go into a highway ditch, and they work. One of them is a pump, goes into a well tile, and it's pumped into the ditch, the roadside. So there's different alternatives. I just wanted to see, it would have been nice to have some sort of estimate as to what it would cost. There are some estimates in here. There is an estimate in here. I think it was 6,000, 7,000. So I'm just wondering if there's any way we could get some sort of more information. That's what they're asking for, more information before we make a decision on a municipal drain. Is there any possibility we could get that through you to Director Rojas, if I could ask him in engineering?
So let's get a motion on the floor. What's your motion, and then we'll have a discussion about it. Do you want to just do a motion right now to receive?
To receive, please, yeah.
Okay, so that the report ENG 2020-028, recommendations from the November 24th, 2020 Drainage Board meeting, the Martin petition, be received. Moved by Councillor Ashmore, seconded by Councillor Seymour Fagan. Your question was, you have a question for the director. Is Director Rojas on the line? There he is. Welcome, sir. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Did you hear the question from Councillor Ashmore?
can you just repeat it? I want to make sure I got it correctly.
Yes, I'm just wondering if the city, the Public Works, has done an actual cost estimate of what it would be to ditch from the front of that property, the Martin property, to the east towards where Pigeon Lake Road curves, and what the cost would be together to put, you have to put in some bigger culverts. The Martin entrance doesn't have a culvert. The Dillings and Reed have culverts, but they may have to be upsized a bit. But has there been any estimates? We have an estimate here, but we don't have any estimates from the city, and that's why I was wondering if you had any idea what it would cost as an alternative to a municipal drain through the properties.
Go ahead, Director.
Thank you for the question through you, Mr. Mayor. So first, I'm not sure what the Public Works Department has done, but the Engineering Department, through our municipal drainage program, did investigate the site. I'm going to share my screen because there seems to be, I just want to clarify a couple things. So 1899 is the Martin property. There's a high point somewhere around here near the bend in Pigeon Lake Road. So there's a high point here, and there's a high point basically at the driveway to the Martin's farm. So this whole area right here is low, and you can see that on Street View. So this right here is a Martin farm, This is looking to the east. You can see the road drop off, and the road drops off and it picks up here. So this whole area here is low. That's why there is no culvert at the Martin driveway, because it's essentially the high point. It drains to the east and to the west. So now the question regarding the municipal drain. So in order to lower, we would have to introduce a culvert and re-ditch this. So re-ditched it and put a culvert in, this would drain away. So that is true. However, it would not alleviate the Martins' concern because they would like to tile drain their farm. Just waiting until it loads back up. So in order to tile drain their farm, according to their estimates, which is this area here, they would have to lower this ditch by about 10 to 11 feet, which would pose problems on the roadside ditch. The roadside ditch, the grade wouldn't catch up. So it would have to be a culvert or a storm system through this areas with catch basins and whatnot, and maybe a retaining wall if we were to re-ditch it. But again, that hasn't, we investigated preliminarily through that, but that's what the Drainage Act and a petition drain would evaluate. They will evaluate putting it through the road right away, through the back property, through shared property. It's a communal drainage solution that the Drainage Act facilitates.
Yeah, to follow-up question. Before we went into this municipal drain, there was a talk of between the parties, there was talk of a mutual agreement. And the Martins had agreed to pay, I'll talk feet here, I can do both, but I'll talk feet. 600 feet, that's 1,600 feet, 1,700 feet approximately. So just figure the CN tower laid down, that's how long this drain is. It was agreed upon that the Martins would pay 600 feet and the Dillings would be paying 1,000 feet. I'm just wondering why it was divided like that. Because you would have, like Director Rojas, you'd be privy to that information, would you not? Like that they did, and Manager Farquhar, that they tried to come up with a mutual agreement, but they didn't because it wasn't 50-50.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, so a mutual agreement is just that. It's an agreement that both parties agree to. So how they proportionate their cost sharing is really up to them. The city only provides an avenue in order to, so we have a template mutual agreement and we walk them through the process, but ultimately the negotiation and the cost sharing is strictly between the parties entering into the mutual agreement. If they could mutually agree, then we have an executed mutual agreement. If they can't agree for whatever reason, then we follow a petition drain through the Drainage Act. And the petition drain through the Drainage Act allocates benefit, depending what type of benefit it is, and then it proportionally shares those costs within the benefiting parties. So we really have no say on a mutual agreement that the city really is not involved in.
Okay, Director, I have a quick question just as a follow-up to Councillor Ashmore's comment. So is there anything, if council approves proceeding with this petition, is there anything to stop the parties from still working out other options? I mean, this just starts the process, is that correct? And the process takes a little bit of a while, and there's nothing to stop them coming to another agreement in the meantime before it actually begins, is that correct?
That is correct. Once we appoint an engineer through a resolution of council, the first step in the engineer's duties is to determine whether or not the petition is valid. If it is valid, then he moves on to the various different stages. The first one is a meeting for consideration. And a meeting consideration looks at all options and vets them all. In any time through that process, they can collapse the petition drain process and enter into a mutual agreement prior to the bylaw being executed. The municipal drain bylaw, which happens at the end of the process.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion to receipt. Councillor Riley?
If, would Juan be able, through you, Mr. Mayor, would you be able to bring the Martin Farm up again? Would you be able to just show us with a little arrow where the potential municipal drain is going through the properties?
Absolutely. So again, I can't presuppose the petition drain process, but to the best of my knowledge, this is the Martin Farm 1899. This is the drilling property, Elizabeth's property, 1915. If I turn off my aerial, there is a water course. And if I turn on the KRCA regulated area, bear with me. I had it up here somewhere. So if I turn on the hatched area is the KRCA regulated area, which follows this historic water course. So there's a water course. And when I say water course, it could be dry, it could be seasonal. So it doesn't have to be a wet year round. But there is a water course here, a regulated area here into a pond, and then it outlets back into Pigeon Inlet Lake Road. If I overlay the aerial on it, you could sort of see the pond here. That's the Martin's Pond they were talking about. So that would be possibly the municipal drain. So it's my understanding that the Martins want to tile drain the back part of their property. And in order to get a tile drainage from this back corner down to here, that would be approximately an 11 feet fall, which makes this extremely cost prohibitive. By lowering this ditch here until this pond and then naturally only go to the culvert, that to me would satisfy their drainage and tile concerns. But again, the appointed engineer would have to go through all those calculations and regulations. And any environmentally protected or regulated area, we would have to follow the same process in order to make sure that we minimize impact to the natural environment.
Thank you. So we have a motion to receive. I'll call the question. All in favor? That's passed. Is there any follow-up motion? Councillor Vail?
I'll move the rest of the motion.
Remainder of the motion as printed to proceed with the petition. Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Yeo. Do you want to speak to it? Councillor Vail?
No, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It's any landowner's right to petition for a municipal drain, and as Juan just affirmed, there's still lots of time for the parties to enter into a mutual agreement. The costing and what the drains will look like or what the options are the next step in the process. So I see no reason to slow the process down or stop the process at this point.
Thank you. Councillor Yeo, you want to speak to it?
Yes, briefly. As the previous speaker said, it is a process. This is the first step in that process. So the longer you fight each step of the process, the longer it takes. So let's keep the process moving. Thank you.
I'll remind, the longer it takes and the more expensive it becomes. And we have proof of that on a few other drains in this municipality. So Councillor Ashmore, go ahead.
Just a question through you to the director, if I could. So how much would it cost for the engineer? Now, once we start this, you're committed. There's no going back once you start the process. How much does it cost up front, and what would it cost potentially within the year to do it? Study and everything, the engineer.
Director?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. So a couple comments. So once you start the process, so at any time, the petitioners, anyone that's on the petition, could withdraw. So if he withdraws early, then it's obviously a minimal cost. So the first step in this process is to get a preliminary assessment, which should be a couple $1,000 and a meeting to consider. So again, our intent is to minimize the cost wherever possible. And OMAFRA has some average cost of municipal drains. I think they range in the order of about 50,000, but that's for construction, the petition process, the design, the bylaws, everything. And that's for a large drain. This is a relatively small drain. So typically for construction and design, we're in the neighborhood of about 20 to 30,000, depending on what permits we need. But again, that's just a high level estimate. We will do this process in stages so that at any stage, if we find an alternative agreement, a mutual agreement, we could easily dissolve the municipal drain process by a withdrawal in order to minimize cost.
Thank you. Go ahead, follow up.
Sure, thanks. So through you to Director, so we'll say it costs 25,000 to round it off. Is that, would that be applied to all the landowners? I think there's at least 6 or 7 in that drainage watershed, approximately. So they would be responsible for that?
Correct. It would be all benefiting parties, whether they use the drain or not. It would be all landowners within the catchment area, including the city of Kawartha Lakes, because we're a landowner as well. We own Pigeon Lake Road. And there's 2 types of benefits. So there's so if you're directly on the drain, you pay a little bit of a premium. And if you're in the outskirts of the drain, but drain into it, but not fronting it, it's a tier 2 cost. But all those would be laid out. There is a court of revisions that is established that should any of the landowners not agree with their assessment, they can take it to the court of revisions and seek readjustment of those of their proportional rates.
Thank you. Councillor Vail, go ahead.
Just to clarify about the other landowners involved, and correct me, Director, if I'm wrong, until the engineer is appointed and until the engineer establishes the watershed, we don't know how many people are affected by this, correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's correct. As I mentioned before, the first stage is for the engineer to determine whether the petition is valid, and that involves identifying the catchment area, the watershed area, going out and doing some survey work in order to establish the boundaries of the areas that require drainage.
So just to follow up, so at this point, the only people for sure that are involved is the Martins, the petitioner, and quite likely the neighbor Reeds and Dilling, correct?
I would also add the city of Kawartha Lakes, as we're the road authority for Pigeon Lake Road, and we also contribute to the drainage. So those 3.
Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Seymour Fagan, go ahead.
Just have a question because I don't really know much about municipal drains. Okay, so if I have a property and 10 feet, and I need to get my field drained, and I have 10 feet on my land, we have to put them in a municipal drain. And say there's 100 feet on someone else's land. Would they have to pay the 100 feet that are on their land and I pay for the 10 feet? It's just a question. I'm just wondering about that.
Yes, it would be proportionally shared. So obviously the 10 feet on your land, if you're upstream, you're the only one that benefits from that 10 feet. The 100 feet downstream, both all upstream parties benefit and the landowner benefits. So it's sort of a cascading benefit model.
Okay, just because if I want it done, shouldn't I be paying more? I'm just wondering.
Welcome to the Drainage Act.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So through you, so this is sort of the problem with the Drainage Act. So the Drainage Act was brought in to solve disputes between neighbors. So if your downstream neighbor does not allow you onto their land to tile drain or for agricultural purposes, for any kind of drainage purposes, there's really no recourse. That's why the Drainage Act was introduced, to find a communal solution and apportion drains accordingly. Again, a better alternative is a mutual agreement, because then you can decide between yourselves what proportional cost it would be between one party and another. But when there isn't an agreement or a resolution, a municipal drain process is really the only avenue. OMAFRA also provides a 1/3 grant towards the construction and the assessment of a municipal drain if you're farm tax eligible.
No, and it's a good question, and I'll remind that Mr. Martin offered to pay for digging out the ditch on his and the neighbors to solve this issue, and the neighbor has obviously not agreed, so his only avenue is to go to the Drainage Act to be able to farm his property to the value of what he wants to put a crop in, right? So he certainly, came forward with what I would think would be a reasonable solution. I would suggest they go back and revisit that before they get too far down this path, but I'll leave that up to the parties involved. Councillor Ashmore, quick follow-up?
Yeah, I just feel that it's difficult supporting this right now because I think they should give them another 30 days to come up with some sort of mutual agreement. I think that would be the best route instead of going into this committing yourself because, you appoint a drainage referee. I mean, you get into some pretty costly expenses here and everybody's going to have to pay for it. You're going to split the neighborhood apart and it's just, you're going to end up with a short and a 2A drain fiasco again. That's what's going to happen. And I don't want to see that, but I just think we should exhaust all possibilities of negotiation amicably with the parties before we commit today. I would propose, I don't think it's going to be friendly, but I'm just going to say right now that I think we should be giving this another 30 days before and let it come back to the next council meeting.
You're not in favor of the motion?
No, not
Okay.
as it is.
Thank you. Councillor Helmsley?
I'm not sure whether I should bring this up or not, but are we the only municipality in Ontario or the only one of two that has a drainage board left? All the others do not have one. Is that correct?
Councillor Vail, do you have the answer to that?
To my knowledge, that's correct, and the director can correct me if I'm wrong, but.
And how does it work in all those other municipalities? What do they do?
They don't have municipal drains. The two areas that have drainage boards are ours, and it's the Chatham-Kent areas, so that's the two highest agricultural areas that have it. The rest of them, they deal with, like, you'd be lucky if there was one drain a year, and so they go to council directly without a drainage board. There's more drains in our municipality than there are roads.
I'm glad you brought that up. Director has a comment. Go ahead, Juan.
Yes, so I agree with Councillor Vail. So Chatham-Kent by far has the largest municipal drains in Ontario. There's only two municipalities, Chatham-Kent and the City of Kawartha Lakes, that have drainage boards. But there are several municipalities that have municipal drains. There's a lot in the Kingston, the Ottawa Valley, or by the Niagara, Essex, London. So there are several municipal drains throughout Ontario. However, there's only two drainage boards within municipalities. Chatham-Kent is council has authorized Chatham-Kent's board to appoint engineers, deal with municipal drain issues. So the Chatham-Kent Municipal Drainage Board is a lot more powerful, has regulatory powers granted by council. The City of Kawartha Lakes Drainage Board is simply a advisory board and still has to come to council for endorsement of the recommendation. That's the major distinction between the Chatham-Kent and the CKL Drainage Board.
Thank you. And not really relevant to this motion.
Not particularly. I just, but it just twigs me that, we are one of two, and is that something we need to look at some point? I don't know. But I echo, we do not want to be in another short and two-way situation, so I think we need to do this.
Thank you. Councillor Vail, you moved the recommendation. Do you want to sum up?
Thanks. I think it's pretty clear at this point, right? Mr. Martin and the Reeds and the Dillings have had a conversation. They've tried to come up with a mutual agreement to no avail. The front ditch option has been looked at by the petitioner. At this point, he doesn't feel that this is an option. So he's within his rights to petition for a municipal drain. And at this stage, like the director has confirmed, they can still work on a mutual agreement and still have plenty of time to work towards that end through the process.
Thank you. So the motion is to proceed with the petition as the recommendation as printed. All in favor? That's passed. Thank you. 1316 is the next extraction, charitable road tolls, extracted by Councillor Elmsley. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm wondering if Manager Sloan is on the line.
I am here.
Good day. Thank you for coming. I just want to confirm that the changes that were made to this report deal with shortening the distance to be away from a bridge, and that we removed the clauses that spoke to the need for charitable and charities and not-for-profits who do these things to provide financial statements. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So this is a follow-up report in response to Council's request. So I've amended it to reflect that. And what we've done is we've added a section just to make it clear that which charities are being supported, to add that information to the signs that are on the roadway adjacent to the event.
Okay, thank you. Having heard that, I will move the motion as printed.
As printed, Councillor Elmsley, second by Councillor Yeo. Questions? Aaron, I have a quick question. There's a bylaw attached to this report and then another bylaw at the end in our bylaw section. Are they the same, or are you just putting it with the report to show the bylaw and then we endorse it at the end, or what's the rationale for having them both there?
The bylaw should be exactly the same. So it's attached to the report that, as amended, and I believe there's also a draft attached for council to consider.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And, yep, no, that's fine. I just wondered why there was, as long as they're the same bylaw. Any questions? Call the question. All in favor? That's passed. Thanks, Aaron. Next extraction is 13114, which is my extraction, Kawartha Lake Skills Advance Ontario program. This is a really, I think, an important program and something that was brought up by all the task forces regarding employment and people looking for work and the ability to find jobs. So I'm going to ask Rebecca just to come online, and one of our newer employees has put together this report. So I thought we'd just take a couple minutes and get a quick overview, and you can meet our new employee, but I'll turn it over to Rebecca, and go ahead.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's my pleasure to introduce Danielle Harris to you. Danielle joined our team in September specifically to lead this Skills Advance Ontario project for us. And over the last 3 months has done an incredible amount of work to bring this project to where it is today. So I will turn it over to Danielle to give you the overview.
Welcome, Danielle. If you can just give us a 2-minute overview, that would be much appreciated, and then we'll see if there's any questions for you. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and councillors. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the program that we're working on. So the Kawartha Lake Skills Advance Ontario program is a workforce development initiative fully funded by the Ministry of Learning, Training and Skills Development and administered by Kawartha Lakes. The SAO is focused on 2 important sectors in the Kawartha Lakes, manufacturing and agriculture. Skills development and sector-focused training will be provided to job seekers and to existing employees looking to advance in the workplace. The SAO has been designed and developed in partnership with 2 training providers, Saskatchewan Fleming College and VCCS Employment Center, in addition with local manufacturing and agriculture businesses, sector experts, and practitioners in the field. They've all contributed to the design and development of this program. There are 2 streams for the SAO program. One is a job seeker stream, and the other is an incumbent or existing employee stream. So I'll talk to you a little bit first about the job seeker stream. It will partner with local businesses in the 2 sectors to identify job vacancies, and the program will then recruit and train suitable candidates for the specific job. The job seeker will receive 6 weeks of pre-employment sector-focused training. There are financial supports available during this time, a dedicated job developer from VCCS, and up to 1 year of wraparound support for training to the job seeker and the employer business. The job seeker stream will provide access to long-term, meaningful employment opportunities to people in the community that are looking for work but may have experienced challenges in finding and maintaining employment in the past. The job seeker stream will also address challenges faced by local employers with finding suitable candidates. Discussions with the Pandemic Economic Recovery Task Force and Economic Recovery workshops highlighted some challenges that employers were facing when it came to finding candidates and delivering successful onboarding of new employees. The SAO will addresses these concerns and will partner with the job seekers and employers to find good matches. There are 2 cohorts, one starting in January will be manufacturer focused, another starting in February, and agriculture starting in March. There will be 4 weeks of in-class learning, 2-week job trial with their employer. There's no cost to the job seeker or to the employer, and in fact, there is financial supports available as well as a wage stipend during those 2 weeks of job placement. Now I'll talk to you a little bit about the incumbent employee stream. This will work with local businesses in manufacturing and agriculture to identify training opportunities for their existing employees. This will facilitate workforce development, job retention, and provide employees with the opportunity to advance within their workplace. The SAO program is a good news story that will provide employment support to our citizens and local employers in both sectors. We are excited to be launching both the streams in 2021. The SAO will train approximately 18 job seekers and 90 incumbent employees, and we will be reapplying for the program with the next ministry intake starting in April 2021. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Danielle, for that overview. So in my simple mind, we have people out there looking for work, we have employers looking for employees, and through a partnership with the college and VCCS, through a program paid for by the province, we have this Skills Advance program put together. Is that a fairly good sum up?
That's exactly it.
I like what I'm hearing. Thank you. Councillor Riley, you had a question?
No, as much as a comment, just thank Ms. Harris for coming on board and for preparing this. Certainly fits into the Economic Development Task Force. Mr. Phillips from Sir Sanford Fleming in Peterborough certainly was very front and center about what we're going to do, a recovery for the economy after COVID-19. So this certainly fits into our needs, and so thank you to both of you for bringing this forward.
Thank you. Councillor Ashmore?
Thank you. Just a question to Danielle through you. First of all, VCCS, they're an excellent organization. I've even taken a few courses there. And the question is, do you work with the local high schools with the OYAP program, Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program? Is that still something you work with, or will they be a part of this program? I don't see them listed here, but do you ever tap into that as well, or work with them, because they're an excellent program too? And they work with VCCS as well.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor, for the question. This program is specifically targeted at adults 18 and older, looking to address some workforce challenge issues that they've had in the past. So this is not targeted at high school students. However, we do have opportunities with VCCS. If we receive people looking for a program that would be suited, such as the one you mentioned, VCCS would direct them to that. So VCCS will be handling the intake, and we will make sure that anyone who has questions about this program, if it's not a good fit, there's an alternative for them.
Thank you. Can I get a mover for the motion to receive and execute the service agreements? Councillor Riley and Vale, any further questions? All in favor? That's passed. Thank you, ladies. Appreciate the overview. Okay, we'll move into item 13.1.16, which is establishment of a bylaw to regulate road occupancy and closure. Councillor Elmsley, your extraction?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The reason I extracted this is because I'm concerned with the fallout to others rather than just people who are doing construction or things that may impede our roads, and I understand Public Works doesn't have a method for going after those people. But the fallout from that, and I'll hearken back to, it may have been even the last council that had to deal with it, but it had to do with trying to regulate people working on the roads, and it came down to cottage associations and people who adopted a road, and we tried, and there was a report that put in some very onerous restrictions on those people. It had to do with applying for a permit, and then they had to wear safety boots, and they had to wear hard hats, and they had to put on vests and all sorts of things that weren't going to happen on a cottage road on a Saturday morning when they went out to clean the garbage up from the side of the roads. And I see this as being somewhat the same thing. I think that the goal here is clear enough, but I worry about the fallout to other groups like cottage associations and like Adopt a Road programs, whereby people are going to be caught up in this, and they're not going to be able to do the things that they wish to do in order to keep their areas clean and cleared without going through a large bureaucratic amount of detail in order to get there, which they'll end up not doing, and the work won't get done. I also am concerned with down the road at some time, things like limited service agreements. We have groups that we're dealing with right now who are trying to get signed on to limited service agreements, and they're being told that they have to bring their roads up to spec in order to do it. And it seems to me that if we sign on to this bylaw, what will happen is you can say, well, we'd like a limited service agreement. Well, you have to bring your road up to spec. And you say, well, you're not allowed to work on the road. So I would like perhaps for this to go back to staff to work into it that perhaps some of these other groups who may unfortunately get swept up in this particular attempt at a bylaw would be done harm by, and have them specifically excluded from the bylaw and have it brought back to council.
So why don't we get the director on board and let's get some clarification, and then you can make your motion, Councillor, as you choose. Director, I assume you heard some of the comments, some of the concerns raised by Councillor Emsley. Can you comment on some of those?
I did. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the councillor and council as a whole. I just want to provide a little bit of clarity on the intent of this bylaw. And the intent of the bylaw is not to go after those particular community groups that Councillor Emsley was speaking about. The intent is to control activity within our municipal road allowance, ensure that the work is being done safe, that the work is done being in accordance with provincial requirements for traffic control, and we have appropriate insurances in place to cover any liabilities for the municipality. This is a common type of bylaw that's in many municipalities, or most municipalities around the province. Something that we have had in place as a practice, but not with a bylaw to support that in the background. With respect to community groups cleaning up road allowance, there is a policy already in place with respect to Adopt a Road. This is not going to impede or differentiate the way that work is performed. The bylaw in front of you is specifically for municipal highways. So it is for assumed infrastructure and assumed roads. So again, dealing with those private and unassumed roads, we have direction from council. We're going to continue to work with those groups to bring those roads up to a standard. Again, when they're working on those properties, there already is a practice and process in place for those groups to apply for and obtain permission from the municipality to perform work there. What this does is if someone is out there performing work that's inappropriate or that is not in alignment with our standards or requirements, this gives us the ability to go out and address those behaviors. And again, with specifically respect to the LSAs, there already is council policy and bylaws in place to provide those criteria for those groups to manage those roads in order to receive those services. So this bylaw and this process that we're looking is not going to impede or impact those. It's really to ensure that we have processes in place to deal with those types of instances where activities happening without our permission, without our consent, and is actually a safety concern for the public. And I have provided the clerk with a photo of a very, very recent example of what we're trying to achieve and to be able to control underneath this bylaw. So I don't know if it's worthwhile looking at that or not.
So just to be clear, to alleviate the councillor's concerns, this bylaw that you're proposing has no effect on cottage associations, LSAs, Adopt a Road program. They have their own policies for working on the road, and this bylaw does not apply to any of them, just our municipally owned roads, correct?
So it does apply to the process. So if an association wants to work on a road allowance, that's a municipal road allowance, that there is it would apply to them, but it applies to them currently already. So the process is already being followed by those groups. There's really no change to that effect. But again, if a private homeowner or a different group goes out and starts to manipulate or change the municipal road allowance, this allows us the ability to go out and prevent that work from happening. Right now, we have no ability to do so. And again, if you look at the photo that was presented there, you'll see here a contractor that was performing work on a road in Lindsay without permission, without acknowledgement. They placed a large commercial waste bin on the road allowance with one cone beside it, dumped a large load of topsoil on the road, and began to spread and make a mess of the municipal road allowance, and then placed 8 pallets of sod on the municipal sidewalk without permission. So again, creating a very unsafe, environment for both motoring public and pedestrian traffic without any permissions whatsoever. We could accommodate this work, but what the permissions and the requirements of this bylaw would enable us to put some controls in place, ensure proper traffic control is in place. They may need flaggers to manage that, to ensure that the sidewalk is properly closed and pedestrians are redeployed or redirected onto an open area of the sidewalk. It's just, there's lots of concerns with that activity. Right now, we have no ability to make corrective action underneath our current policies and bylaws. This bylaw will enable us to then go out and address those concerns in a proactive manner.
Thank you. Councillor Yeo.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I have some issues with the bylaw as well, and maybe it's not so much with this bylaw, it's with how the process works to date. I have a few people in Coboconk area. Don't think there's any in Norland I've heard of, but at least 3 in Coboconk over the past couple years, where they've been told to stop cutting the grass in the ditch in front of their house because for safety concerns and liability, and they're working on a road right away, and that in fact, if they want the grass cut in front of the house, and to phone the city and they would do it. I got to tell you, I laughed out loud when I heard that. So I want to, where is this process going? These people, and I can bring them to this council chamber and sit them down and tell their story. They're not allowed to cut the grass in front of their house because it's on our road allowance. So is that the intent, or is that the direction the city is going?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, I'm not familiar with those particular situations. I don't know if there is an enhanced safety concern with having the member of the public within the road allowance performing that work or not. I'd have to look at it independently and go forward. Again, the intention of this bylaw is not to prohibit the activity. It's to ensure that the activity, when being performed, is done in a safe and responsible manner with the appropriate liabilities taken care of through insurances and so on. That's the intention of the bylaw.
Okay, so the intent of this bylaw, so once this is passed, then literally you could not, without naming the city as an insured, cut the grass in the ditch in front of your house. And that's what the bylaw says. Am I correct in that?
Again, so through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, the intention of the bylaw is to control activity within our road allowance and permit it with responsible activity in the road allowance. So if we wanted to get down to an individual cutting the grass in the front yard and that was raising enough safety concerns and enough issues with staff, we would have the ability under the bylaw to address that behavior if the resident continued to refuse to address it. So what this does is it doesn't change the process that's currently in place, but it puts the capability of enforcement behind it. So am I going to say that our staff are going to run around and cut and stop everybody that's cutting the grass in the boulevard? Absolutely not. But this does enable the municipality to control activity if it's not being done in a safe and responsible manner.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dunn?
Yeah, just a comment, and I'm not sure whether Manager Sloan is still on the line, but my understanding is not only are we allowed to cut the grass in the boulevards, be it a ditch or not, we're required to cut the grass on a boulevard. And I use Logie Street as an example because the people with all that nice fencing there are still required, are still obligated to cut the grass between the fence and the sidewalk, even though they're cut off from it. So my understanding is that we're required to cut it, not just allowed. But I would like some clarification.
Manager Sloan, did you hear the question?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. The councillor is correct in that we do have a boulevard agreements bylaw that requires property owners in the town of Lindsay to maintain the boulevard in front of their residence, basically, or the boulevards that run adjacent to their residence.
Okay. Councillor Ashmore, question?
Question through you to Director Robinson. Just a question, like, I'll give you an example, Victoria Place, south of Bob Cajun, they hire a company to do all of the curbs and cut the grass and the ditches to the road to make the place looking very nice as it is. And they take it upon themselves to do that. And also you have people all over that are combing in the spring, they're combing out all the gravel that's been put there from the plows, and they're cutting the grass and noxious weeds. So are we basically telling them not to do that anymore, or we're just saying, you know, for all the free work that they're doing, the citizens, of cleaning out in front of the place, which some instances have been caused by the city, so are they going to be now not allowed to do this?
Director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. Again, the intention is not to go after and deal with people that are raking their front yards or cutting their grass or doing some minor maintenance in their boulevards. The intention of this is to look at contractors and other activities within the road allowance. So again, whether it's Enbridge installing a gas system on the line, whether it's Bell putting in a buried conduit structure within a road allowance to ensure that we have appropriate measures in place for that activity. So the municipality and staff are not going to be chasing down every single activity within the road allowance. What this does is enables staff to deal with those unsafe activities if deemed so by staff. So that's the intent of the bylaw. We're not going to message out to everybody that stay off our road allowance unless you have a permit. The intention of the bylaw and the way that the work has been described under the definitions within the bylaw are the activities that we're going to be reviewing and asking for appropriate permits in place for. Again, this is not a unique bylaw. This is a bylaw that's in place in most of the municipalities around the province. In fact, this one here is a very close replica of the bylaw that was in place down in Pickering. So it's not a unique process, and staff are looking to improve the process overall, not to restrict.
And I think, like every other one of our bylaw, we're going to have to rely on an element of common sense. When this happens, right now we have no recourse and no way to prevent it, no way to enforce it. So when that happens and they call your local councillor and you say, well, we don't really have a bylaw that can do anything about that. Does it happen that often? I don't know, but I think the municipality needs to have some kind of a bylaw in place to prevent that happening without the proper permissions. And if this gets out of hand and, you know, we start preventing people from cutting lawns and putting the hammer down, which I know is not the intent, then we'll have to bring it back. But to not have something like this in place, in my opinion, for that very reason right there, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But Councillor Vail, go ahead.
Thanks. Thanks. Just a quick question. So, and it's not a case that I don't disagree, because I do agree. But to take it one step further, so in some of these situations with unopened or unassumed road allowances where there is currently an issue, does that mean that we as a municipality are going to start cleaning some of the stuff up, like trees that have come down and stuff like that? I have a couple of instances where residents were told not to be on the road because it was our road allowance, even though the tree came down and was on their property and the road allowance. And when they phoned the city, they were told that the city would not remove the tree or deal with the tree because it was on an unopened road allowance. So I'd just like to know that in some of these cases, if there are some issues, that we're going to start doing our part as well.
Director?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to the councillor. So again, the intention of this bylaw is not to change those past practices. If there are issues on private roads or unassumed roads that are outside of the mandate of the Public Works Department, again, so within unassumed roads, within private roads, we don't provide any services unless there's an agreement in place or as directed by council. If a tree comes down on an unassumed road, it's really up to that group to address that. So again, whether they work independently to remove that, or whether they hire a contractor, whether they work in partnership with the city, depending on the severity and emergency nature of that work, the expectations currently is that those groups are obtaining road occupancy permits for that activity. As long as it's being done in a safe and responsible manner, there's no change to the process. If something is happening where they're causing damage to the road allowance, there's risk to the municipality, they're leaving things in an unsafe manner for residents, we have the ability through the road occupancy bylaw to address those behaviors. That's the intent. The intent is not to change processes as they're currently happening.
Thank you. Your extraction, Councillor Helmsley, would you be willing to move the recommendation and maybe have a report back in the fall about an update, and we'll see how it's rolling out? If there's any concerns at that time, would that give you some comfort, or I'll leave it up to you?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Where I am with it, and I've heard from other people who have other experiences, the old expression, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, is one I recall. And while I keep hearing about the intention of the bylaw, it is the fallout that catches other people and other groups who are trying to be responsible and do good things that concerns me. The other thing is, I keep hearing about our road allowances and our roads, and it strikes me that they're everybody's roads and everybody's road allowances, because it's the citizens of the city of Kawartha Lakes that pay the taxes that allow these roads to exist in the first place, and it gives them the right to be on the roads. So what I'd like to do is I will certainly receive the report, and I would like that this report be modified to refer to the other bylaws and the other instruments that are in place that protect the adopt-a-roads and the LSAs and the road allowances that are currently being serviced by our own people and cutting the grass in the ditches along the roadways. I'd like to see this report reflect that and the bylaw reflect it before we pass it as a council.
So what's your
So,
motion?
My motion is to receive the report and send it back to staff for an update to the report in terms of the things that have been discussed with road associations, cottage associations, adopt a road programs, and individual citizens keeping the property in front of their houses in proper repair.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Ashmore, you want to speak to it? You have? Councillor Ashmore, do you want to speak to it?
Sure. No, Councillor Elmsley said it. I think the way it is right now, it sort of gives the residents kind of a negative connotation if they do the work, and now they're going to be feeling like, why should I put all my work into this and sweat equity into trying to keep the city looking nice and looking my property nice, or even a property that they don't own. So I mean, it's like you're really frowning upon volunteers that trying to make the municipality look nice, and they're making an effort, and I don't think it's appropriate that we, as it is right now, that we pass it. So I agree with the mover.
I would suggest, Director, if this motion passes, when the bylaw comes back, it needs to be a lot clearer, because I don't think there's a lot of understanding of what your intent is here. But that's just my comment. Councillor Dunn, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to speak against the motion. It's clear what they want, what the intention is. The intention is to stop contractors and other people from coming in and making a mess of the city. And I have no idea where that street is, but I certainly had the problem over on Eglinton, where three different contractors each had a dump barrel on the city road. So it merely gives the city an opportunity to deal with those people and rectify the situation. I've got total confidence in bylaw to exercise discretion. If it doesn't work, then we'll fix it, but I think we have to fix the problem that's obvious and in front of us. And I don't support the motion to send it back. I think we need to move forward with the motion.
Thank you for that. Agree completely. Councillor Richardson?
Thank you. I'm kind of echoing the same sentiment. So what I'm looking at is you want a direction for the contractors. So if the contractors are doing this type of work, you're going to have the notification beforehand to make the decision if yes, it's going to happen this way, or no, it's not going to happen this way. So it's more of a rollout when it comes to the contractors.
Director?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. So if I understand the question is what is the intent here? So right now we have a process that's currently in place for road occupancy and for road closure, where if anybody's going to utilize our road allowance or work actively within our road allowance, they're required to submit a permit request, and we will review and process that. So that's not going to change. This isn't going to change any of those processes that are in place. What it will do is for contractors that go into our road allowance without permission, without a clear activity plan, and working in an unsafe manner, allow the staff to go out and stop the work and ask them to go through and follow the process, that we currently have in place. So it's documenting the appropriate traffic control, it's documenting the appropriate insurances, and making sure that the roads are being used in an appropriate manner. Everybody has rights to travel and be within our road allowance, but they also have the right to be there in a safe manner. And in some cases, the activities being performed are preventing that from happening. Staff are looking for a mechanism to enforce those activities in a safe way.
Okay. No? Follow-up? Okay. Councillor Elmsley, do you want to sum up your motion? That was your sum up? Thank you. We'll call the question then. Everybody's clear on the motion? All in favor? Motion fails. Councillor Dunn, you'll move it as printed? Thank you. Second by Councillor Seymour Fagan. Don't all jump up. Any further comments or questions? Call the question. All in favor? That's passed. Thank you. Thanks, Director. Stick around. We're doing the backwater valve one next. I'm sure there's a few more questions. 13117 is the backwater valve subsidy program extracted by Councillor Elmsley. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm quite happy with, to bring forward a backwater valve program. And I would think that we should do it along the lines of what is proposed in the report, that it be to a maximum of $75,000 in 1 year, first come, first serve, but I would like it changed slightly, that it is to 50% of the cost of the installation of the backwater valve only. And if I get a seconder, I'll speak to it.
So the motion, not as printed on the front, but in your alternatives, that it be received that the policy entitled Backwater Valve Subsidy Program appended to this report as Appendix A, which would be amended to the cost being 50% of the installation, not capped at $750, just 50% of the installation period, and inserted into the corporate policy. The Backwater Valve Subsidy Program Management Directive be received, and that the $75,000 still be included in the operating budget as a cap each year for the funding, correct? Okay. Got it. Second, Councillor Dunn, you'll second that? You want to speak to it? Go ahead. Councillor Elmsley, your motion?
No, I just think that this is a good thing to do, and we ourselves as a city sometimes get in trouble when we do the flushing of the sanitary sewers, and it has happened where it's backed up into people's houses. It doesn't apply to new builds. It only applies to existing homes that have been there, and there's a cap on it per year. I really don't think we're going to be swamped with people coming forward who want to do this, but I think it offers an additional protection. I know that we had at least 4 houses in Fenelon that were adversely affected by an incident, and I think that this gives us protection from those kinds of events and would be welcomed by the homeowners. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dunn?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's just a couple of things under the criteria that I would like to offer to the mover as a friendly. Number one would be that that if in fact we do pass this bylaw, that it be retroactive to the start of the year, simply to capture the people over on Laurie Boulevard that were so devastated with the flood in January. And my second one would be that it be budgeted as a special project, which would enable us to track it. And if in fact, and I'm going to make some numbers up, there's a $75,000 cap. If in fact we spent $20,000 this year, then it would be a case of in the following years we just top it up, as in opposed to that money disappearing back into the general budget. And the third comment I would make is, because it's not captured here, is if in 2021 I applied and the money had already been spent, that I would be able to apply in 2022 for the people that I don't think will ever hit the 75 personally. But if in fact we did, somebody missed it out because they put their application in November and the money was gone, that they'd be allowed to reapply the following year. With those changes, I'm more than happy to support this motion.
Yeah, I'd support those.
Okay. So we have a mover and a seconder with that the policy 50% of the installation, take off the cap of $750, retroactive to the beginning of 2020, funded through a special project so we can keep track of the budget each year and what's utilized. And, sorry, the third one?
If in fact the budget was spent in any given year, that person would be allowed to reapply the following year.
I think that's in here, but we can make that clarification. So it's still the Appendix A as amended be adopted is the motion. Director, any concerns? Yep, go ahead with any of those criteria.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to council, just wanted to provide a bit of clarity on the rationale behind the program as provided. So the $75,000 annual cap, we're proposing to budget that money from reserve. The reason for that is we don't want to place undue burden on the user rate. So if at the end of the day we only have $5,000 worth of a subsidy request coming from the program, we don't want to budget $75,000 and then have the user rate paying that $75,000 only not to be used. So what we're looking at doing is having the money come from the reserve to supplement that program or to fulfill that program. So I'm hoping council sees the merits of that. We can control tracking obviously within our group and report back to council as needed. But looking to avoid having that $75,000 in a special project or in the operating budget to avoid undue burdens and pressures on the user rate. Again, with respect to the maximum of $750, that is a reasonable market rate for the installation of these types of things. What we're trying to do there is to ensure that we're only paying for the installation and not any of the restoration or repair or any work to the home as a result. So if that council wants to go down that road to remove that $750 limit, that's their choice. But I would request that we do leave the $75,000 coming from reserve. But you are correct. If someone doesn't have the opportunity, and we do fully spend that $75,000 in year, those residents would have the capability to be first in line for the following year for that subsidy.
Okay, I'm seeing by the mover we don't need the special project. It sounds like the funding is a better option, so the mover and the second are okay with that. And just for clarity, Director, the $750 was half of your average price of $1,500, but some of the discussion has been that some of the valves we've heard can cost $2,000 or $2,500. So we're not paying for installation and drywall and contractors and everything. We're not suggesting that. Just 50% of the cost of the valve, but not capping it at $750. So that's just for your clarification, in case the valve costs a bit more than the $1,500. So that was the intent there. Any other questions or comments, Councillor Riley?
Yeah, it was just around the 750. I'm just going to say, who's going to monitor the 750? I don't just, we had a cap of 750. I just hope that, I'm not disagreeing with the motion, but I just wonder that, if other people aren't going to kind of make it more than 750. And,
well, they have to submit an invoice, and once the invoice meets the criteria of the rebate, then they'll be submitted a rebate after the fact, after it's installed.
Okay.
So they have to supply proof of the installation and everything, and that's then and only then will they get a rebate back. They have to do the work first. So that's the way the program's set up.
But 750 is pretty standard valve, wouldn't it be? I guess there could be exceptions, but anyway, I know they could cost up to more than that. But anyways, I guess we'll know after the program's in place for a year. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's passed. Thank you, Director. Appreciate it. Okay, so we're just going to keep going here because we'll come up to close soon, and we'll take a little break then. So if it's okay, we'll just go to 13.2.1 is the memo regarding council appointment to the Drainage Board. Councillor Ashmore, your extraction?
Yes, thanks. I'm going to receive it and move it, but I had a question to Councillor Vail. We talked about this at the Drainage Board about a member that wasn't here on that board due to an illness. They missed, I think, 3 meetings. So is that member going to have the ability to come back or still stay on the board?
Yes, at that Drainage Board meeting, if you remember, we passed a motion excusing the 3 absences, which was necessary for him to stay on the Drainage Board. So when he's able to start attending meetings, he'll be able to come back.
Okay, good. And just one more question through you too, Councillor. The last sentence in the second paragraph under rationale says, this will encourage a better and more productive discussion regarding drainage. Personally, I think we have really good discussion. I'm just not 100% sure what that means.
We have good discussions at the meeting. It's just at this point in time, you've got a chair and 3 board members. It's bringing some other perspective and some other ideas and everything to the table, right? That currently isn't there because we're under-complemented.
And just a reminder that it allows up to 7 members, so we're just trying to fill it with a councillor who has some knowledge of the Drainage Board from the past, resulting in, I would say, a better and more productive discussion with more members. I think you're recruiting as well, aren't we? Don't we have an ad out to try and get another public member to try and bring it up to a full complement? So I think that's the rationale there, Councillor Ashmore. Okay? Does anybody want to move this recommendation? Councillor Vail, you'll move your memo, seconded by Councillor Yeo. All in favor? That's passed. Thank you. 13.3.1 is an extracted from consent regarding the off-road vehicle use task force. We had 5 councillors that volunteered to be on this task force. The terms of reference say 3. So just based on the structure of the city and the way the trail, this is not about trails, this is about road linkage to trails. So what my recommendation is that report RD 2020-012 Task Force Off-Road Vehicle Use of Municipal Roads be received, that the terms of reference in Appendix A to report RD 2020-012 be approved by council, that Councillors Richardson, Dunn, and Seymour Fagan be appointed to the task force, and that staff be authorized to proceed with recruitment of task force members. I'm going to move her in a seconder. I'll speak to it. Councillor O'Reilly and Yeo. I'll just speak to it real briefly. I know other councillors put their name forward to be on it. Obviously, we can't put 5 councillors on the task force, so I just council can choose to do what they wish. I just came forward, which I thought was a good cross-section of the city. From the south to Lindsay has some issues with linkage. This was first brought forward by Councillor Richards in the south regarding some linkage, and Councillor Seymour Fagan has many, many trails running through her area, so road linkage is certainly an issue there, and that is just the rationale for those 3, nothing else. Sorry? Brian's got his hand up? Okay, well, when I'm done, I'll go to Brian. Thank you. But that's the rationale for putting forward the task force, and they've got a pretty tight timeline. I know we've already started recruiting, advertising for recruitment of members, but that's the rationale for those 3, and you guys can choose to do what you want from there. Did you have a comment, Director?
Yes, sorry, Mr. Mayor, through you to council. Just a bit of clarity on the ATV task force as the terms of reference are written. Yes, a component of the task force is to look at potential linkages. The primary focus and role of the task force is to look at the legislative changes with respect to use of off-road vehicles on the road allowance, and really to focus on appropriate locations, use, and types of activity on the road allowance. So linkage is being a piece of it, but we want to really look at where is it appropriate for off-road vehicles to be used within a municipal road allowance as a whole, in addition to those linkages. So just want to be clear that it's not just the links and the trail connections that we're talking about, it's the general use of off-road vehicles on a municipal road allowance.
Thank you for that clarity. Councillor Helmsley, you had a question?
More of a comment, really. These meetings will be public meetings?
Yes.
So, I mean, a councillor can attend if they want to. So.
Council can attend, should attend, and certainly any comments they have should be, forwarded to the task force, just like anyone else. So, absolutely. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Ashmore?
Question through you to the Director. Director Robinson, appropriate locations. How do you define that? Like, are you setting out locations right now, or is this something that staff have said that there's going to be appropriate locations? Like, are you predetermining what communities are going to be able to have their ATVs and use them on road allowances, or is this just, I'm hoping the answer is going to be that we're going to look at everything, like all the communities that are going to have a chance at this. So I just want to get clarification on that. I wasn't quite sure what you meant by appropriate locations.
I think that's for the task force to examine, but I'll let the Director comment.
Absolutely. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council, that is the role of the task force, is to look at our municipal road network and to make those determinations of what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. Staff are not making any predeterminations of that. We do have an existing bylaw that does have some requirements and allowances for use of our roads at this time. But council has asked for the task force to look at this overall use of roads in relation to the legislative changes. So it's up to the task force to review and make those determinations. That's the intent.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? I'll call the question. All in favor? That's passed. Thank you. Item 15, bylaws. Councillor Richardson, are there any bylaws to be extracted? Seeing none, Councillor Richardson, go ahead.
Thank you, and through you. Moved by myself, seconded by
Sorry.
Council.
Hold on one sec. We got a late bloomer over here. Go ahead. Backwater valve? Was there a bylaw?
I don't, that's my question. There
It
was
was
no...
in the appendix, it was attached, we amended the appendix.
Yeah,
So I don't think there's a bylaw that needs to be a part of that. It's not a, I think it's just a council policy.
okay.
I don't think there's a bylaw goes with it. We didn't change any
I
other.
just didn't want it to get
No,
missed.
I appreciate that. We didn't change any other bylaws, did we? We tried. We tried unsuccessfully. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, and through you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Vale, that the bylaws shown in section 15.1 of the agenda, namely items 15.1 and to 1 to including 15.1 to 29, to be read a first, second, third time passed, number signed, and the corporate seal attached.
Thank you. All in favor? That's passed. We have one bylaw extracted. The only reason I extracted it, this is the Committee of Adjustment appointment, and we're recommending Councillor Yeo again for the, we have to do a bylaw appointing a council member every year. So we repeal last year's bylaw and put in place a new one. Councillor Yeo's agreed to stand. This is a sort of quick follow-up to the conversation I had with all of council about your committees. And all of council was quite happy or content, I won't say happy, but content with the committees they were on this year, so there was no need to make any adjustments, and the only one we need to appoint a bylaw for is a Committee of Adjustment. So that bylaw 15.2.1 of the agenda be read a first, second, and third time, passed, numbered, signed, and the corporate seal attached, I believe is the motion we need for that. Councillor O'Reilly and Vale, questions? All in favor? That's passed. Thank you. Notice of motion. We're going to go into closed. We need adoption of the closed session agenda, please. We need to do that in open. Councillor Yeo and Dunn. All in favor? That's passed. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in closed session items? Seeing none, can I get a motion, please, to move into closed session? Councillor O'Reilly and Vale, all in favor? That's passed. We'll take a 10-minute break, and we'll come back and deal with closed session items. Okay, we're back in open session. We're back online. Thank you. We've come out of closed, and we have some matters from closed session. Madam Clerk?
Matters from closed session. The closed session minutes from the regular council meeting on November 17th, 2020 were approved. Item 17.3.2, which is acquisition of Austin Sawmill Parklands at 4 Station Road. The motion reads that staff be directed to obtain a Phase 1 environmental assessment report for land legally described as Block N and Block O on Plan 105 in the geographic village of Kinmount, being all of PIN 63120-0969 LT the property. And that report, and if that report indicates the potential for contamination on the property, a Phase 2 environmental assessment report, that the survey and consultant costs associated with the obtaining the environmental assessments be drawn from the property development reserve, that the matter of the potential acquisition of the property return to council for consideration once the reports have been finalized. That should council approve the acquisition of the property, that council approve the vendor, John Austin and Sons Limited, retaining an easement over the property for the purpose of installing and operating a hydroelectric generator. That 10% of the gross revenue obtained from the operation of the hydroelectric generator be deposited into the reserve account 1.32068, being Kinmount Hydro Reserve. That staff be directed to acquire a further parcel of property identified as PIN 63120-1329, the access property, currently being used for access to 4 Station Road in the geographic village of Kinmount, and that the mayor and the clerk be authorized to execute any documents and agreements required by the approval of acquiring the access property.
Sorry, that's a motion. Moved by Councillor Yeo, second. Councillor Seymour Fagan, any questions? All in favor? That's passed.
Item 17.3.3 regarding the curbside collection carts. Council received an update on curbside collection carts. And then that the motion is that council directs staff to enforce the requirements of bylaw 2016-044, being a bylaw regarding the collection and management of waste and recyclables.
Thank you. Mover, Councillor O'Reilly, seconded by Councillor Richardson. All in favor? That's passed.
And a follow-up motion was that staff evaluate large clear plastic bags for recycling to report back on the cost implications.
In January.
In January
2021. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Ashmore, seconded by Councillor Seymour Fagan. All in favor? That's passed.
So item 17.3.4 regarding the waste management budget considerations, information was received. There's a motion that council raised the minimum charge at the landfill from $5 to $10 in 2021.
Yes, and that direction was given regarding the waste management budget considerations. That can be part of the same motion.
Okay.
Okay. Mover, Councillor Yeo, second by, Councillor Seymour Fagan. All in favor? That's passed. And 17.3.5.
17.3. A motion rising from 17.3.5 regarding the Fenelon Landfill Public Review Committee, that the following members of the public be appointed to the Fenelon Landfill Public Review Committee: Robert Coleman for a term of 2 years, 2020 to 2022, and Mike Wilson for a term of 2 years, 2020 to 2022.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Elmsley, second by Counselor Dunn, all in favor? That's passed. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
I believe there's also,
That was it?
council received an update on request for a proposal complaint.
Yes. Thank you. Item 1736. Right?
Right.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor O'Reilly, confirming bylaw?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Ashmore, that a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular council meeting held Tuesday, December the 15th, 2020 be read first, second, third time, passed, numbered, signed, and the corporate seal attached.
Thank you. All in favor? That's passed. And a motion to adjourn. Councillor Yeo and Dunn, all in favor? That's passed. We are adjourned. Have a great holiday, everybody. Be safe.
Merry Christmas.
Be safe. Merry Christmas.